Strike a Chord, music chit-chat with your host, Valentino Kikowski. Welcome to Strike a Chord Podcast. We have the awesome drummer, Simon Hanna. Simon, welcome.
Thank you very much, Valentino. It's awesome to be here, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
I'm privileged to have you here, mate. So, drums. Where did it all start for Simon?
Wow. I think it really kind of started for me back when I was about 13 or 14, so as far back as like high school, ever since I was about 13 or 14. And really what kind of inspired me during that was... very funnily enough, was actually from a couple of things. It was actually from Animal from the Muppet Show. Just watching the numerous videos I've watched of Animal from
craziness.
the Muppet Show. Oh yeah, but also specifically from the drummer from The Living End. That was seeing him on Sunrise, but also seeing through the various live performances from The Living End as well. And they were kind of like the first real rock band that I got into back when I was a kid. And ever since then, I started getting into drums throughout high school, just taking lessons all the way up from high school right down to where I am now, of course.
Awesome.
And even going as far as to doing music throughout high school, right up to when I studied at uni at Melbourne Polytechnic.
Oh, you did Polytechnic, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
That's right. You'll probably remember this, but obviously there was a couple of people that were up on here that I remember directly from Melbourne Polytechnic, who studied at the same time I was there. Oscar Poncel.
Oh, Oscar, yeah.
And also, and my memory's starting to go blank on me because it's been a really long time since I've thought about it. The trumpet...
Stefan.
Stefan, yes. They were both at Melbourne Polytechnic at the same time I was there. So,
and also, we've got another podcast where we're going to have Jack Pantazis on.
Yes, Jack Pantazis. Yes. He was one of the lecturers.
A very good friend of mine.
Yeah, such an awesome guitar player, such an awesome dude as well.
Awesome. And so you're from that... You're from that... garden, I should say, right?
Yeah,
musical garden.
Very much so, which was about 10 years ago when I did my Bachelor of Music at Melbourne Polytechnic, when it used to be called NMIT before they did the name change.
I did it at NMIT too.
Oh, wow.
This was going back maybe before that, maybe about 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I did it at Greensboro.
Oh, fantastic, mate. I did mine at Fairfield.
Oh, Fairfield, that was the original one.
Oh,
that was where that's where it all started, I think. So it's going back a fair bit now.
It is. It certainly has. And just thinking about that now, especially like, obviously having gone through what we all went through for the last 2 years, thanks to COVID, and now realizing we're in 2022, I immediately started thinking to myself, wow, it's actually been 10 years since Melbourne Polytechnic, which is crazy.
Yeah, it is.
And I still keep in touch with like a lot of the Melbourne Polytechnic people over the years.
Very good.
Because the Melbourne music scene is such a really small. It's a big community, of course. It's huge,
but it's small at the same time.
It is small at the same time. It's like you know almost everybody and everything, so you're bound to run in to people that you've known from that circle, or from people from as far back as that.
Oh yeah. Look, I think, and that's the goodness of it. Like the Melbourne music scene and the Melbourne musicians really, they really connect. You know, it doesn't matter what genre they're from, or you know, if you're a musician, you're one of us. You know, and that's the Melbourne thing. That's what Melbourne does, and especially coming from an institution, or you know, whether it's Polytechnic, whether it's Melbourne Uni, whether it's VCA, you know, there's all that common thing, and which is music, right? And that is what brings us together, you know.
Absolutely, I definitely agree on that 100%. When I actually first got into Melbourne Polytechnic, that was actually not going to be my first choice.
Oh, really?
It was originally going to be at Melbourne University at the Victorian College of the Arts.
Yeah,
that was when I decided, when I was in VC at the time. As I said, I got into music not just in drum lessons during high school throughout that time, where I had private drum lessons around then, but I was doing music classes at the same time as that, even to VCE level as well.
Yep.
And my music teacher at the time, James Rust, shout out to you, Rusty, you're amazing, by the way, still are. He actually was the one who turned me off from Victorian College of the Arts because of how focused it was on the classical jazz side of things. And at that time, I didn't really know. I mean, I was a little bit familiar with some of the jazz stuff, but not nearly on the level like it got to when it got to Melbourne Polytechnic at that time.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate to go to Melbourne Polytechnic, which was much more well-rounded as a course, where it opened you up to a range of styles of music that I never would have experienced or even had known about beforehand.
Yeah, and I think the good thing about Polytechnic as well is, well, when I was there, and I have conversations about this with Jack as well. It's about they actually they train you for the real world. I don't know how it is now, but back then it was, they train you for the real world. It's not, you're not always gonna be a rock star, and not everyone's gonna be a rock star. So you gotta, you gotta make sure that you're professional about it. You got to be committed. You got to go to rehearsals. You got to be committed to the gigs. You got to get there on time. You got to have equipment. It's all about that. That was the training then. Not only playing, as well as playing, and there was a lot of playing, but also how you approach it.
Absolutely.
Outside of school. So
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, it depends very much on the course that you're part of at that time, because obviously they had different kind of courses.
They did, yeah.
Up and around that time, like the advanced diploma, the certificates, the Bachelor of Music.
That's right.
And I don't know if they've upgraded to masters at that time, but I obviously went through the Bachelor of Music at that time, and that was. Obviously, I don't know the state of it now versus as it was back then, but around that time, like, it had so many subjects around that time, even subjects at that time which you never would have thought of going straight into that. You'd be thinking one thing, but then going straight into the actual subject itself, it's like, wait, what?
Yeah. And that's a good thing, because it's it was quite diverse in its in its approach.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Melbourne Uni, the VCA, was very about serious music, it was classical or jazz, and it was, you had to abide by that syllabus,
Yeah.
But with Melbourne Polytechnic, you would have seen they used to get a lot of people to come in. A lot of international people used to come in. People like I read that you had a bit of inspiration from Dave Weckl and stuff like that, and people that were big names, and they used to come in, and you used to think, oh, I've seen this guy only on television, or I've seen this guy only in big bands, in big concerts, and now he's right in front of me, which is that opportunity you don't come across all the time, and they used to provide that,
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right about that. How we used to get a lot of guests coming down from not specifically down to Melbourne Polytechnic, but through walks of life.
Yeah.
Through even just masterclasses that your teachers would recommend to you over the years. But it's also through the mentors that you have over your life that will give you that real life experience.
Yeah, of course.
In the way that like university courses would not necessarily give to you in that sense, which is. And I've been very fortunate to have that through the people and mentors that I've had over the years, from people like, from Jonathan Diamond to Ronnie Farella, who was my first drum teacher back in university for my first couple of years. But specifically, and one teacher and one drummer that I actually look to and I really look up to, not just as a drummer, but also as a person. And I really saw myself as the drummer being one day, was Tony Floyd, who is the drummer for Things of Stone and Wood. And it was my final drum teacher in my final year of uni. He really gave to me that experience, and I still kept in contact with him to this day forward for advice and as a mentor as well.
Yeah,
and
lifetime mentor.
A lifetime mentor in that sense.
And look, that's a good thing, because we all get into a bit of a lull every now and then, and it's good to revert back to your mentors, providing they're still alive. my mentors are not alive anymore, which is unfortunate. But you get to meet other people who your colleagues, but also mentors. And there's a whole array of different musicians here, and really diverse, and it's easy to find that person, where you're going to connect, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that he's your teacher or she's your teacher, but someone that you connect with and you just have a bit of a chat. And,
Very much so.
And this is why I'm doing the podcast, right?
That's it, man. That's it.
and you want to connect with these people, and you want to have a good relationship with them, and the more we can spread the word about the musicians, and the more we can support each other, the better it's going to be, and the happier we're going to be. Music is happiness.
Absolutely. I agree on that 100%. I mean, I've been as I mentioned before, I've been really fortunate to have that through the people that I've had over the years, but also kind of the real learning experience has come through after like university. That's when the real learning, I think, started to kick in, because it's like, all right, I've got all the stuff I've got from uni and through the advice I've had through my mentors to the best of their ability. Now it's about putting it into context.
That's right.
And that's when the real learning kicks in, and that's when that will either push you forward or it's really going to kick you in the butt.
Yeah,
when you least expect it.
Correct, really. And you find the challenges sometimes are greater than you expected, but that's a good thing, because if you do overcome that challenge and you hit that next step, well, that's an achievement in itself,
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So, drumming, freelancing,
yes,
and also Fennec.
Yes. Actually going deeper, actually going a little bit into all of that. Like obviously post-university and all that kind of stuff, I was actually a bit of a late bloomer when it came to the Melbourne music scene at the time, because I've heard about all these gigs happening around Melbourne at the time and through these venues and all that. But at the time, I didn't really know too much about them, because obviously during uni, they hardly ever mention these kind of stuff to you. But you do see them on flyers and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't really start getting into gigging until I was around my second year of university around that time, playing with this Melbourne band called Salt Lake City in two really well-known venues across Melbourne, Open Studio and the Wesley Ann, which are both venues across Northgate, which are beautiful venues.
Yeah, fantastic venues.
Absolutely fantastic venues up there. And then, obviously, when that started to happen, obviously post-university and all that, I was going to gigs at like venues that I've heard about so much, from like the Northgate Social Club right down to the Workers Club in Fitzroy, even the Night Cat in Fitzroy, which is
Night Cat is iconic.
It really is. It really, really is. And when I started getting into the whole drumming side of things, I definitely wanted to head down the freelance route as far back as like university, but at the time I didn't really know how to approach it that much, because obviously, like, it's again from getting the experience, it's from knowing people, it's from knowing the right connections, and of course, I think to quote a well-known drummer named Todd Suckerman from his DVD Methods and Mechanics, which is amazing. The quote I still hold on to this day forward, and I watched this from a couple of years ago, was, it's a people business, and people want to work with their friends. You have to get out there and make friends.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And it also doesn't help if you're introvert, which I was.
Yeah.
I was very much so, and I was scared to approach people, and I came from a musical family, don't forget. So my dad played, my grandfather was into music and everything like that, but going out there and doing it for yourself, and growing up I was very introverted, and I was really scared, really shy. I was really what do they want me for? I'm not that good, but it's probably whether it's a right or wrong thing to do and not approach, you don't know, because you don't know the person. But if you don't go out there and you don't try it, you probably get rejected once, twice, 3 times. Out of 10 times, you might one time you might get someone who's going to say, "All right, I'll give you a shot," and that's a courage thing.
Definitely.
It's not even a music thing. It's just a personality thing, and
it definitely. I definitely agree on that 100%. I mean, I still consider myself a little bit of an introvert here and there. He says while he happens to be chatting so much during all of this. But no, I mean, I definitely agree on that 100%. And I felt that way when I first got out of university, right into the wide world of the music scene at that time.
Yeah, you get thrown into the ocean.
It's that exactly. It's like I was a little fish right in this very big ocean, and it's just knowing where to start in all of this.
Yeah.
But also because it's also having confidence in your own abilities as well. Because especially during especially as I remember during my uni levels, I got my butt kicked God knows how many times during that.
We all got our butt kicked, and that's a good thing though.
Yeah, definitely.
You learn a lot of things.
Absolutely. I mean, it can be a really good thing as well. And at the same time, it's like you're getting thrown into all these areas that you're not necessarily a huge fan of. Or you're like, okay, all right, this isn't exactly what I signed up for in this case.
Yeah, but then you find the one thing that one little thing that'll help you. That's what I found.
Yeah.
You get thrown into these things. Oh, I don't want to do pop. I don't want to do jazz. I don't want to do that. But especially with pop, you get thrown into these things and into these ensembles, and you learn this one thing from here, one thing from there, one thing from there, and you think, you know what, I could use this.
Absolutely.
And if that's the case, well then, job's done.
Absolutely.
You know?
I agree on that 100%. And when it came to like the whole getting into the freelance thing down the track, I was playing like a whole bunch of groups before that time, before Fennec obviously came along, and actually in a lot of groups where I was the main drummer for a lot of that stuff, where they've been really successful and everything, and I've had such a great time playing with those bands. Some of them have been less than successful. Others have moved on to pretty good things, and then they've just hit that course where it's like, nah, I feel like that's had it, or like the band
Yeah.
has just kind of ended at that point.
Yeah, there are expiry dates for some bands.
I've
For
certainly,
some bands, not all.
I've certainly have felt like a fair few of those, but really, but actually, the moment for me that sort of clarified to me when I officially went down the freelance route was a few years ago, back in 2019. I still remember this. I was in two groups at the same time before Fennec ended up coming along. I've known Fennec for years. It was with a jazz fusion instrumental group that I formed with a few mates of mine called Secondhand Smoke. And we ended up recording one of our songs. We played a whole bunch of gigs, doing my first festival gig with them, doing my first residency with them. And at the same time, on the other end of that equation, I was playing in an indie pop rock group called Silt. Shout out to them, by the way, because I know they're amazing, amazing musos, amazing guys. And I was playing with those two bands at exactly the same time. Again, with Silt, I was playing in like places that I didn't think possible, from like playing at like the Firefly in St Kilda. I think when they used to have gigs up there, or who knows what's happened with that place. And also recording with them just a little bit at that same token, like hitting all these really great gigs and everything.
Yep.
But at the same token, I was kind of going to myself, wow, is this really, or it just felt like I was hitting a brick wall at that time.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, how am I going to get past this brick wall that I put up myself against? And I realized, what was I getting the most out of as a musician? Was it getting it out of being a permanent band member in a lot of these groups, or was it getting it out of the freelance stuff?
Okay.
And the moment for me that sort of redefined, that sort of answered that question for me was when I was like, I ended up getting this album that I did drums for this really good friend of mine named Oscar James. He's a great singer-songwriter. He's a really good guy and everything, that had my name listed down on the credits as drums. And a physical copy that he officially gave to me when the album was finished. And I was going to myself, this is me being the freelancer.
Yeah.
And after those two groups had ended at that time with nothing terrible or anything like that, but obviously Silt wanted to take the music in a different direction, but because of my commitment to Secondhand Smoke, I knew I was going to have to pick between one of those two groups. So I figured that was going to happen eventually.
It's a gut thing.
It's a gut thing, really.
Yeah.
And Secondhand Smoke, ironically, would split up the month after that.
Oh, okay.
But I actually was not upset about it.
Yeah.
I was actually a little I was actually like, you know what? I'm actually not upset about this. All right, I've done all this great stuff. Let's get to business.
Yeah.
Let's get into the freelance side of things.
Freelancing's got its challenges.
Yeah.
It's got its beauty because you get to meet a lot of people and you get to play a lot of different styles if that's what you're into, you know. The challenges are whether you're going to first gel with these people, you know, at a gig.
Yeah.
The second thing is what sort of a gig it is. You know, sometimes you don't know what sort of a gig until you start playing sometimes. And the other thing is, am I, you know, the routine thing, you know, it's never the same routine, it's never the same repertoire, it's never the same, you know, and some people get fed up of that, you know, and they think, oh, you know what, I know of some people, they've got their group, it's the regular thing, they get the gigs and that's all they're happy with, you know. But I know some other people, they freelance and they love it. And they think, you know what, I like the challenge. You know, keeps them on their toes, you know?
I actually do agree on that last point there, where it really does challenge you. It really pushes you outside of your comfort zone as a drummer and as a musician, of course. On the same token, it's like most of the freelance stuff I get asked to play for on a regular basis is within the pop rock side of things, and usually not on the extreme side of things like jazz or like doing Afro-Cuban or Brazilian or anything like extreme in that sense.
Brazilian, our audio guy is Brazilian. He knows about it.
There you go. There you go. So I hardly been asked to do like stuff in that sort of repertoire, but I was never complaining about it. I was like, you know, as long as I'm up there playing my drums, I really don't care what I have to do in that sense.
I know on your website you have a little thing at the end of your bio. Anyone can play. You just need passion and Was it?
It's all about attitude.
It's all about attitude and passion.
Yeah.
That's so true.
I agree on that.
know?
I mean, that's kind of the thing that I still stand by in this case, in that I have to love what I'm doing in this sense. If I'm not loving it, if I'm not doing it, then what's the point in basically doing like
That's
whatever
so
job I
true.
get asked to do? I mean, especially since I've learned, I mean, obviously I've got Fennec happening, which is my main group, and also me being the drummer of that group, and I absolutely love it. It's such a lot of fun. I love the musicians I play with. They're amazing musos. They're amazing guys. And I love the freelance stuff that I do. But I had to learn it's okay to say no as a freelancer, to say no to opportunities that you know are not going to work, or that you feel like, you know what, I'm not so sure about this.
Yeah,
or
it's
like
not my cup of tea.
It's not my cup of tea. Exactly. Yeah.
And they probably wouldn't be happy with what I'm going to do for them anyway. And you also have to think of that, you know, if you're going to be saying no, you have to think, why am I saying no? At least 2 or 3 reasons you have to have. It's something that timing wise, probably not. I'm probably busy.
Yeah.
I'm not overly confident with the repertoire, or I'm not their cup of tea. I might not suit what they're doing, you know, and they would think, oh no, you'll be all right, because I've been in that situation where, oh no, come and do a bit of flamenco work, you know, and I've said to them, look, it's not going to fit, you know, it's Nolan string and stuff like it's not going to fit. No, it will, and then you go there and then it's not, you know, and they go, yeah, you were right. You're just a steel string guy or electric, and you know. And everyone's happy about it, you know. But people don't know until they speak with the person, because you know what your ability is, you know what you play, you know what you can do, and you know what you can and can't do.
That's true.
And knowing what you can't do, I think, is more important, because that way you set the expectation. You know, you're not going to go in there and, you know, I'll say, oh, I know this, I know that, and then you go in there, you don't quite know it, because then, you know, then it's an awkward position, and it's not a good position to be in. From both sides, you know.
I absolutely agree on that 100%. I mean, I kind of set myself up knowing the drummer that I am personally, like with the influences that I've grown up with, which obviously my drumming influences I had started to figure out like through uni, and especially post-uni and all that, was mostly from a lot of groove-based drummers, from people like, you know, Steve Gadd to Keith Carlock to Dave Weckl, obviously being another one of my influences. Steve Jordan, who plays regularly with John Mayer, as well as with a whole bunch of other artists.
Mr. Donati.
Yes. Antonio Sanchez from the jazz world with Pat Metheny.
Yes.
Also in the fact of like where Antonio Sanchez came from. And I actually applied this to like with Fennec, for instance, because we're in that very folk country sort of atmosphere where it's a mixture of like drums and percussion in that sense. So, and in the way that Antonio Sanchez uses drums with percussion in his style of, in the playing that he does, not just with Pat Metheny, but with a whole range of artists that he plays with.
Also, another one is Horatio Hernandez, who is the Latin drummer, you know. He's the one that I think has put it on the world map. But you're right, those sort of people, and if you can get a bit of this, bit of that, bit of, you know, you can have quite a successful freelancing career, because you get versatile. You can play a bit of this, you can play a bit of that, you can jump into there, you can jump into that. You know, sometimes you jump in as an emergency, you know, someone can't make it, got a gig tonight, bang, you know. And that's a very, very important thing as well to mention, because the versatility is what is going to get you work as well.
Absolutely.
Because if there's a band and you can post all the time on Facebook, right? You know, this sort of person, we need that sort of person, you know, they come in and fill in the gig for, you know, for a couple of weeks or whatever. They're really good opportunities for a musician, whether you're a drummer, guitarist, keys. It's a very good opportunity, because you get to expand your network first.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you get to play different sorts of music.
Absolutely, you know. And also going to other drummers as well. Like, you know, for example, like another 2 drummers that I've also considered my musical influences is John Bonham from Led Zeppelin for his really big drum sound. But also because he came from that sort of jazz, that sort of era, from that jazz rock era. And also Mitch Mitchell from Jimi Hendrix as well. Again, for that mixture of like jazz drumming within a rock context. Like those ones I've considered to be my biggest influences.
And I think there are a lot of other people's influences, not only drummers.
Yeah.
You know, those people influence other musicians as well, not only drummers, because they were at the peak of their career, you know, and when they were at their peak, the sounds that they produced, I don't think anyone's produced that sound yet. So
That's true.
It's emulated.
Yeah.
People that emulate that sound, and they're very good at it. Like John Bonham's son
Yeah.
does a great job of it. But being that pioneer, that first person to do it, and you look up to that person, you think, But I think you get that, and you put it into context. Whatever your music you're playing, everyone's got a couple of idols or people they look up to, and you're going to hear that style in their playing. But it's very important to put your own trademark on it, your own flavor,
Absolutely. And I think that's something that I think a lot of people really need to sort of figure themselves out. It's like, okay, I've got all these influences and all that kind of stuff. Now it's a matter of just going on this journey to figure out my musical identity. And that's something that I had to do post uni at that time. It's like, okay, I've been through the hard studying and everything. Now I need to sort of figure out or mold my musical identity in this sense. Like, who am I as a musician in this big wide scene that I'm part of? And this is something I had to question a lot, especially post university. And I figured that, and I feel like I figured that out through all the years of experiences, through all the hardships that I've been through over the years to where I am now, of course. But also on the same token, and this actually goes to a quote that I heard from Todd Suckman, who was talking about Stuart Copeland from The Police, who's another one of my drumming influences, such an awesome drummer, where he got asked about how he's become the drummer that he is today. And his quote was, "It's not what I listen to that makes me an interesting musician, but it's me becoming more of an interesting person that makes me an interesting musician."
Okay. Gee, that's big.
That's a really big quote to have.
That's
so
big.
It's really about not just through the music that you listen to, but it's also through becoming more as a person as well over the years.
Exactly. And that becoming of a person also, there's a bit of everything. It's from your upbringing, from the people that you meet, from the people that you look up to, from your own personal experiences. That all gets put into a pot.
Basically, yeah.
And the older you get, the more that boils and the bigger that gets, right? So, and that as a musician, I think we need to respect that. We need to respect ourselves as that, because we're putting something out there. Sometimes we forget about it. We go out there, we just do a gig, we play and stuff, but we forget about where we're deriving from, where we're coming from, and where we're heading to. Because sometimes, well, probably not now, but earlier on, probably pre-COVID, when musicians were really busy, when we were just playing, and you'll do all these gigs, and sometimes you lose focus.
Absolutely, and that's something that, especially when you were just talking about, of course, what we all went through during the lockdown and the virus and everything, that was something that I started to focus on during that first year lockdown, which was actually the time that I officially joined up with Fennec at the end of that first year lockdown, where I started to focus more on myself as a person through my interests, through my hobbies, because music was really kind of the last thing on my brain during that time.
Yeah.
But I was still practicing. I was doing a lot of online session drumming, which was another path that I wanted to go down, even before COVID had happened. But it was now just that opportunity to finally use that to my advantage and finally start going towards that. And I still do to this day forward, even after the lockdowns and COVID had. Who knows if it ended or not? But we're finally past that. But finally past that point anyway.
But I think on the plus side, it did bring technology up to a point where it fast tracked the quality of technology. I think, where now it's normal for you to have a lesson with a big name. When I say big name, in the education sort of sector, right, overseas, someone from Berkeley or someone from Europe, that you've always liked, or from the States that you like, and actually giving lessons online.
Absolutely. I think it's definitely opened up as far as the learning side of things and the education side of things.
And you get to see them on the screen. You think, oh, geez,
I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's great and everything. For example, when they have masterclasses or drum clinics or workshops, they can organize here in Australia, and we're very fortunate to have that here.
Of course.
Through places like Drum Tech, through all the music stores around Melbourne, even around a lot of these conventions that occur around Melbourne or Australia, which we're very fortunate to have, and it can be just as easy to do that through your laptop screen.
Yeah.
It's so fortunate, and I think it's definitely gotten people thanks to COVID, obviously, as you said, it's definitely gotten the technology side of things up to a pretty high
level,
up to a certain level in that sense.
Yeah. And look, we still got a way to go in that sense, but I think we're closer to the people that we respect a bit more, like our, once upon a time we used to think, some musicians, oh, they're gods, I'll never get to, chat to them. All of a sudden, technology is there and you actually get to actually have a chat to them. Social media, this, that, it's like, when I was growing up, there was no way I would have ever, thought of, I can actually message, these great musicians and for them to give me a message back, it's like, you couldn't fathom the thought. Like we would wait, when I was growing up, we would wait for a record to come from the States or come from Europe, we would wait like a couple of months. And by the time they've come, it's come out, it's an old record, So that's back in my day. But now everything, as far as technology goes, people think it's bad and people think it's good. I think there's a if you put yourself in a happy medium there, you use the good in every aspect.
You kind of have that balance. It's kind of a balancing act in that sense, or it's having that balance in there to sort of help out through that sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And actually going on to talking about Fennec, of course, like how that sort of came about. I've actually known the guys from Fennec for a long time, even before COVID had happened. They had asked me to record some drums for several of their tracks around that time. And a bit of a funny story on how that kind of happened was, and this is actually something that I studied that kind of got me into doing this as a drummer going forward, in packing all my drums into my car, especially if you're in situations where they say to you, you can just bring your snare and cymbals for this case. I will literally pack up everything. Including the kitchen sink if I have to, just to get ready for that.
Yeah.
This was one of those situations where I showed up to the studio, and I know the musicians in my group in Fennec are probably going to kick my butt for just talking about this, or they'll probably have pitchforks ready for this. But no, I love you guys. Anyway, basically, like I show up to the event, they say, "Oh, just bring your snare and cymbals," and I go up and I go in and go like, "Where's the rest of the drum set?" Luckily, they had this baby, the cajon, and a couple of egg shakers, which was kind of the sound that they wanted to go after in the first place. But it was from that point onward, and it was from that point onward, I started packing my whole drum set into that moment. But how I got into being the full-on drummer for Fennec at that time was literally the year that COVID struck. The lead singer in my group, Josh Beadle, who's an awesome singer-songwriter, he's an awesome dude. I love you, mate. Bass had messaged out to me once beforehand asking me if I was interested in playing with him or joining up with him as a group. I was committed to another group at that time, and I was focusing a lot on the freelancing side, so I couldn't really say yes to it. But then once that whole lockdown had ended near the end of 2020, he messaged out to me again saying, "Hey, we've got this gig coming up at the SA Institute. You interested in doing a gig up there?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely." I show up, and this is actually the first time that all three of us had ever played together. Back then, it was actually like, because Fennec originally started as a duo with both Josh Biddle, the lead singer, and James McGrath, the guitar player, who's one of the best guitar players I've ever played with. He's an awesome musician. He's an awesome dude. It started out with those two, and then I joined up in the group after the fact. And that was the first time that all three of us had ever played together on stage. And I literally said after we started playing, I was like, "Is the offer still available to join your group?" And the rest was basically history. And I've been playing with them ever since.
It's funny, out of something really bad, something really good happens.
Basically, yeah.
So all that stuff with COVID and everything, but something good happened from it,
Absolutely,
And we have to learn to be aware of those things and respect it, because you probably wouldn't have been with Fennec, if that didn't happen. You probably thought, "Nah, I'm just going to freelance a little bit more." You can't commit. You don't want to commit, but that happens, and you get to meet some really cool people as well. Do some really cool stuff. Record some stuff. I know when things happen, sometimes the timing is of essence. Sometimes you want to play with this person, and you want to play with that person. That person wants to play with you, but the timing's not right. All of a sudden, one day comes, and it happens. I don't think that happened to you.
Absolutely, no. I mean, I've kind of got to that fact, especially with where I am as a musician right now, where I'm like, I'm totally not fussed about like not having to play with a specific person or playing in this thing as a freelancer and all that kind of stuff. I've just learned that, you know, the doors will open up. There'll be plenty of doors opening up for me down the track. It's just a matter of walking through that door when the time is right, you know. And I've learned to kind of have that. And I especially learned with myself as a person and where I am in my life that I'm really just after living the simpler life in this case. Like, especially with where I am as a musician, like fame and fortune and all that kind of stuff. That, I mean, we all had those growing up. But now I'm just like, as long as I'm up there playing my drums, I really don't care the gig that I have to do.
And that's hard sometimes.
It is.
Even that's hard sometimes. I just want to play music, you know? It's hard. It's not as easy as you think. It's like it's like I just want to play my drums stuff. But sometimes you got to play somewhere and you got to play for someone, because you know sometimes you get into a bit of a lull and you think I'm itching to get up on stage, right? And then nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden it spikes, and you have to be ready for that moment.
Yeah.
So therefore, your rehearsals at home, everything that you need to do, you do as you do, you know, because you never know that one day you'll get a call and say, all right, you know, we need you tonight, packing my drums, putting them in the car, off I go, I'm ready. Whereas sometimes you know, if you haven't been rehearsing at home and you're not, you know, you've got that line, you think someone calls you, oh, what am I going to do? You know, I'm not ready, you know, and then, you know, you start stressing and stuff. You say yes to the gig and you get there and you think, oh, shit.
I've been a little bit in those kind of situations myself, and I've been very fortunate enough when it came to COVID and all that kind of stuff that I spend quite a fair bit getting some stuff ready that will obviously adding to my repertoire and all that kind of stuff. Like my very first drum set that my dad got for me when I was back in high school, I had converted it into a smaller drum set. Okay. And obviously you probably would have seen pictures and all that kind of stuff and videos on YouTube and all that. I converted it into a smaller drum set to get ready for gigs where I would get asked to play in those kind of situations, even stuff that I would do with Fennec. And that's kind of been my main drum set for the last couple of years. And I still have my bigger drum set, which is my main kit, which is a PDP main stage kit, since 2015 when I first finished uni. And I still have that drum set because it's a beautiful sounding drum set. It's one of my babies after all. Yep. I'm never going to get rid of it. But I hardly have to bring that out on a regular basis though. But I'm not totally fussed about that. Yep. I'm totally satisfied with like using the smaller drum set because it's there, you know, and it gets the job done.
And then you've gone even smaller to that.
Oh yeah, exactly.
and that is a great instrument. It's so versatile. I use it in flamenco a lot, and it's put it in the back seat, take it out, a few shakers here and there, and that's it.
That's kind of what I've got in this sense. But I've also started getting into like obviously, and this is something that I started getting into with Fennec just for this year, and especially thinking about it in the greatest sense because obviously we've been mostly playing as a trio for the most part since I first joined up with them up until around this year when we started adding a bassist to our group, Luke Shembry, who's a fantastic bass player, not just in electric bass, but also in double bass as well. He's such a monster of a bassist and he's an awesome guy as well, who really brought the sound to new levels in that sense.
Yeah, it makes a difference with bass.
It really does, actually. I mean, not that we didn't have a problem beforehand, but it really just kind of brought
different.
It's different. It's different, exactly. Yeah. But really kind of what I started to get into do, especially with the Cajon, is that luckily with Fennec, because most of our sound comes from that it's very much indie folk country type of music. Think like Angus and Julia Stone meets Boy and Bear in that very folk rock kind of atmosphere. It fits into this kind of atmosphere for that because we can swap back and forth between doing very acoustic kind of things where I can just do this or going like full band escape where I can literally just use like a full drum set. Versatility. But what's really funny about that is that up until about a few gigs ago or something, 90% of the time I get asked to play, I get to use brushes with Fennec because again it comes from that very folk country kind of atmosphere, and 10% of that is in percussion. So I'd be using like something like this, or I'd be using like tambourines or any percussive instruments or egg shakers. Hardly any sticks thrown in there because it just really wouldn't work in that setting. Or the songs, or it's just finding the right song where sticks would be necessary in this case.
Yeah, it's
a bit of a balancing.
It's a bit of a balancing. because you can, and I've seen where they've got some hybrid kits where they use the cajon, a snare, and you still use your sticks and your brushes on the snare, hi-hat as well, and it's great. For some things, it's great, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, they use the cajon as a sort of as a kick with one hand, and then they'll use the sticks or the brushes on the snare.
Yeah.
You got your hi-hat. It's a great sounding little thing, you know.
It
but
is.
again, if you want to go bigger, then you.
That's it.
You know?
That's it. You know.
So, and it all depends on the sound that you want to.
Absolutely.
You want to produce.
That's it. You know, and this is something that I started getting into doing with Fennec down the track. Once I started figuring out like the drums within the greatest sense of the songs and everything, like. What I actually started to get to do, and this is something I started to do in like gigs with very, very recently with Fennec, even during rehearsals and all that, is I will literally use my cajon as my drum stool while I'm up on the main drum set. So I'll swap back and forth between using the cajon and using the drum set for songs where I feel like cajon is just needed in this case, or like drum set will work a lot better in this case, but I'll use brushes, or maybe I'll use sticks in one or two particular songs.
Where you can use mallets as well and all of that, you know.
Yeah.
So look, there's a whole wide range of doing things, and I think, and you seems that you're very aware of what the surroundings are.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's very important, the way of the surroundings, not only the musical surroundings, but where you're playing and to who you're playing.
That's it, you know, absolutely. And I think also in the fact as well is like, and obviously coming from experience when it comes to like doing gigs, not just with Fennec, but within the previous acts that I played beforehand, is that obviously when it comes to doing getting support acts or acts for your gigs ready, whether you're playing as like a main group or as a support act for those particular bands, eventually at some point you're going to have to play with bands that are going to be on the opposite end of the equation to what your sound is.
Of course.
That's just inevitable, really.
Yeah, and you got to be prepared for that.
Exactly. I mean, it's great and everything if you get acts that are very similar to yours, but you're going to have to variety it up a little bit because it's going to bring suspense to the audience. It's going to make the gigs a lot more interesting, not just as a musician, but also as a listener as well.
Of course.
That's kind of what I found myself. Well, like not just with Fennec, but in the other groups that I played with in the past, you know. And again, going back to that experience of just like that musical journey we're constantly going on, where it's those learning experiences where it's like, all right, those experiences have helped shape me into the musician that I am now. And like, all right, what can I bring to the table? What can I bring to Fennec, to the table with Fennec in terms of all these experiences and all that kind of stuff? I mean, obviously COVID didn't help in that fact.
No, of course.
Of course. But now because post-COVID and everything and post-lockdowns and everything, it's now starting to think about the bigger picture on all these kind of stuff. And especially like when it comes to bands and all that kind of stuff, is that you'll come across bands that want to go from 0 to 100 really fast.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it just doesn't work like that. You have to start at the you have to start at the bottom and
especially for a new band.
Especially for a new band, exactly. You have to start at the bottom and work your way up to that. I mean, if you can go to like these really big gigs really fast, like playing at like Hamer Hall or like the Melbourne Recital Centre, or even like Rod Laver Arena or something like that, or Marvel Stadium, of course.
Yeah.
If you can get it to that fast, that's great. That's great and everything. But you have to know how it works, though.
Yeah.
And especially like with not just with the gigs and stuff, but especially if you're starting to get into sell merch and everything, you have to look at the market. You have to look at how it is from a business point of view.
You're spot on there, and you need to set your own expectations correctly.
Exactly.
You know.
I mean, I've come across like definitely a fair bit of musicians that have wanted to go from 0 to 100 fast, and it's like you're going to be in for a really rude awakening for when you start getting into that real world, because unfortunately it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you're spot on. You're spot on there.
Thanks, mate.
So if people want to reach out to you and find you,
obviously
websites, Facebooks, where do they go? And Fennec as well.
Yeah, obviously you can go to our Facebook page on Fennec, which is spelled Fennec. You can find us on Facebook pretty easily, on Instagram as well. You can track me down on Instagram through SPH Muse. You can find me on my music page, which used to be under Simon Hanna Music, but then I spelled it to my nickname, which I've had since high school, which is Simo, which is SIMMO. That's where I post up a lot of stuff on gigs that I do regularly, and also Fennec. I post around on social media quite a fair bit, and you can also track me down through my YouTube channel at, again, the exact same name, Simo.
Done. All right. Well, Simon, thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming on to Strike a Chord.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And hopefully we can do it again later on, and maybe with the rest of the band as well.
That would be amazing. And thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been an honor to be part of this.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you once again. We want to thank the Yesteryear Revival for this whole venue as well, and keep an eye out on Yesteryear Revival as we are starting to do some video productions for bands, specifically for bands and live bands and everything like that. So keep an eye out. That's coming very soon. Want a big shout out and big thank you to my production team as well here, and to Cake Eclipse for these beautiful cakes. So yeah, thanks once again to everyone. Simon, thank you once again.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Thanks, man.
Hope you enjoyed the Strike a Chord podcast. Be sure to visit valentinoflamenco.com to access more podcast episodes, news, and other projects that I'm currently working on. Thanks for listening and watching.